So in this segment, we're going to be again talking about the danger of smart motorways and the pushback that smart motorways are getting by experts and law officials. So they're also being smart motorways. Highways England is also being referred to the CPS over a death on the M1. So Highways England should be investigated over possible manslaughter charges after a woman's death on a smart motorway, a coroner has said. Nargis Begum, 62, from Sheffield, was killed after her car broke down on part of the M1 with no hard shoulder. And if there are issues, that's the area you go into, the hard shoulder. But obviously for smart motorways, there aren't any hard shoulders. So if you have a car accident, you're basically relying on the Highways England to come out and put the barriers up and all that stuff. But that didn't happen. Her own vehicle was hit and ploughed into her, and the length of it went undetected was highlighted by South Yorkshire coroner Nicola Mundy. So basically, someone else hit her car, and her car hit her, and that's what killed her. Highways England said it did not believe it had committed any offence. That's a bold statement right there. Miss Mundy suggested the government-owned company should be referred to the CPS to consider if manslaughter charges were appropriate. Previous hearings into Miss Begum's death in 2018 have heard that 16 minutes had elapsed between her Nissan breaking down near Woodwall services and the crash. It took a further 6 minutes before warning signs were activated. So you can see here, it took about 22 minutes before anything had actually happened. So it took 16 minutes. That 16 minutes elapsed between her Nissan breaking down. So 16 minutes, within about 16 minutes of her car breaking down, she tragically died. And they took a further 6 minutes for the Highways England to find out anything actually happened. At the latest pre-inquest review hearing at Doncaster Coroner's Court, Miss Mundy outlined factors behind her decision to refer the case. She said nobody had responsibility for monitoring cameras. Feeding footage from smart motorways and drivers were unaware. The onus is on them to report any incidents. So because no one's responsible for monitoring the cameras, how are you supposed to see if there's been any accidents? It's just such a dumb system. Someone should obviously be watching the cameras at all times. Speaking after the inquiry, Miss Begum's daughter, Seema Akhtar, said she was pleased the CPS would look into her mum's death and the use of smart motorways. She said it had been incredibly difficult for the family to come to terms with her mother's death, especially for her father, Mohammed Bashir, who had been driving. No constant monitoring. So Highways England is a government-owned company responsible for managing England's motorways and major A roads. Nicholas Chapman, representing the firm, said footage from a CCTV camera covering the scene of the crash would have been sent to a busy regional controlled centre staffed by 7 or 8 people, but he said staff would be receiving images from about 450 cameras and there was no constant or routine monitoring. So this is the guy representing Highways England, right? This is the worst defence I have ever seen in my life. God, man, this is some Rudy Giuliani levels of stuff. So he's saying here that the cameras covering the crash would be sent to a busy regional control centre staffed by 7 or 8 people. So you're saying to me this regional control centre is super busy and there's only 7 or 8 people there. But he said staff would be receiving images from about 450 other cameras and there was no constant or routine monitoring. So you're saying here no one is monitoring these cameras. Oy, oy, oy. He added that there was no evidence of any of the operators did anything else other than consciously go about their duties. But what we can gather from this is the whole system, the whole institution of Highways England is obviously flawed then, if it's the case that no one has the responsibility to routinely monitor the cameras. The cameras that tell you, that show you something has gone wrong, and the cameras that are meant to enable you to take action. Come on, man. 38 people have been killed on smart motorways across the country in the past 5 years. So this is such an embarrassing defence from this lawyer. Oh, did they go to the bottom of the barrel lawyers or something? Why? And we also see that South Yorkshire PCC say to abandon smart motorways. Smart motorways should be abandoned so more serious injuries or fatalities can be avoided, a police crime commissioner has said. Dr. Alan Billings, South Yorkshire PCC, made his comments after 2 coroners raised concerns about deaths on a stretch of the M1 in the country. Meanwhile, South Yorkshire Police has said it will examine inquest documents relating to 2 smart motorway deaths. Highways England said it wanted to make motorways as safe as possible. You're clearly not doing a good job of that. On a stretch of M1 motorway in South Yorkshire, the hard shoulder was replaced by an active lane, and drivers who break down are encouraged to pull in to emergency stopping places, which obviously is not possible if you break down where there's no emergency stopping place. That's why the hard shoulder exists. That's the emergency stopping place. In a statement, Dr. Billings said, "I do not believe there is anyone who uses this stretch of the motorway as I do who does not feel anxious when driving along it," which, 100% agree with that. He also highlighted a crash on Friday on the northbound M1 junction between the 31st between 30 and 31, which he said involved a lorry hitting a stationary car in a live running lane. As a result, both carriages were closed for a time, with motorists experiencing long delays. The accident is currently subject to a police investigation, Highways England has said. Dr. Billings said, "I call upon the Minister and Highways England to abandon this type of smart motorway before we get more serious injuries or fatalities." He added that he had been contacted by lorry drivers concerned over the dangers of stationary vehicles in a motorway lane and the difficulties of being able to pull out of fast-moving traffic. And you've got to imagine some of these cars are going 50, 60 miles per hour, and especially if it's dark, you're not going to see the other car, especially when no one's actually got the job of monitoring the cameras, which is something we've established in this article and the last article. So you can see how dangerous smart motorways are. He said he had written to the Transport Secretary over his concerns. Responding to Dr. Billings, a highway spokesman said, "We want to do everything we can to make our motorways as safe as possible." Again, these stock statements, anyone can make them. I want to make my house as safe as possible for anyone. Like, you're not doing your job properly because you don't have the staff and no one is monitoring the cameras all the time. We are aware of the ongoing concerns from Dr. Billings and others, and we are working hard to deliver improvements set out in the Transport Secretary's action plan. In March, the government published an action plan which found that in most ways smart motorways are safe. I'm sure in most ways they are safe, but without a hard shoulder, they are not safe as a motorway with a hard shoulder. And this statement here, in most ways smart motorways are as safe or even safer than conventional ones. Where is this evident? There's clearly the person here, the Yorkshire PCC, the Police and Crimes Commission, does not believe so. Clearly coroners do not believe so. Clearly these people may be alive if there weren't such a thing as smart motorways. This person who tragically lost their life would still be alive, and also the other people we've covered in other stories who may still be alive because if there hadn't been smart motorways, if there had been a hard shoulder, if they actually had people monitoring the cameras all the time, people may not be dead, people may not be as injured, but clearly the government don't care because it's painful sometimes to talk about this government and their lack of empathy with people. And this story highlights it, I think. The fact that they went through with a stupid plan of building smart motorways, which they would have been warned at the time were dangerous, with regards to not having a hard shoulder. And the simple fact is that the agency that they created, Highways England, is also doing a crap job. It's doing a crap job of monitoring the highways. So, what more is there to say apart from, government have to do something, and I want to see whoever's in charge of shadow transport start talking about these stories in Parliament, because this may not be a major story, but it's important because people have died needlessly, people have been injured needlessly because the government wanted to turn a lane that was built to protect people basically, when their cars break down, if they have any issues, etc., into another lane of the motorway, which if anything does happen to your car, which when you're going that fast, things can happen, there can be accidents, your car can break down, whatever can happen. Without having that, it's clearly made the motorway more dangerous, and we know Highways England aren't doing a good job. Why? Because they're understaffed and no one's monitoring cameras. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.